Hey friends, welcome to Sabbath School Daily, where we have been studying from this lesson right here, Ephesians. This week we're studying from lesson number 9, which has the title, Living Wisely, and today's lesson is Wednesday again. So what happened is that this week I went to Maryland, the extreme opposite from where I live. I live in California in the United States, and I went to get my little brother because he's staying 2 weeks with us here in California. And a series of events happened. I went to the wrong airport on the way back. We were supposed to be back on Monday. I went to the wrong airport, had to rush to another one, only to then find out that our flight was canceled. And so we slept there again Monday to Tuesday and came back yesterday, Tuesday. And I had only recorded up to Monday's lesson. So yesterday I was recording, right, my wife just corrected me. We were recording up to I had already recorded up to Tuesday's lesson. And so yesterday I was supposed to do today's lesson, which is Wednesday. However, I studied Thursday's lesson. And so you might have found it a little bit strange because while the title was right for Wednesday's lesson, the lesson was wrong. I had studied Thursday's lesson and I had taught Thursday's lesson. So right now I'm going to teach, or I'm going to present Wednesday's lesson, and I'm going to publish it on Thursday. And so it's going to be a whole thing. I'm probably going to switch the title of Wednesday's lesson and put it to Thursdays. And then I'm going to put the title of this lesson and put it as Wednesdays. But you'll see that I'm releasing this video on Thursday, although it's Wednesday, but you already have Thursdays. I know that this is a whole mess, but that's okay. I do invite you to pray for this ministry. It is not easy to produce daily videos. It's just myself and my wife doing this. I am not that great at editing videos. Just getting by. I'm learning, actually. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, but it is a lot of work. So please do pray for us. It's been a growth process. There's a learning curve to doing something like this in a way where it's not too time consuming and I can do everything else that I have to do. But at the same time, I do enjoy it. I feel that God is leading us, and I've grown a lot. But again, pray for us because it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. We do mess up sometimes, as you can see, but that's okay. Anyway, today's lesson, which is Wednesday's lesson, it has the title, of course, I'm not there right now, but it has the title, Snapping Up Bargains, which is what I did yesterday. But I was teaching the lesson yesterday, and I was not understanding what the title had to do with what I was saying. And so it was in the back of my mind, but I didn't even think to question it. I had just gotten back from the airport. So now it's going to make sense. Snapping up bargains. This lesson has to do with Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 through 17. And it has to do with two exhortations, right? What you find here is two clusters of exhortations. That's what the lesson is telling us. And the first one is verse 15 through 17. And then the second one is 18 through 20 that we already studied on Thursday's lesson that I already released. So you already know that one. But today's lesson has to do with verses 15 through 17 that say this. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. So what you find here is two kinds of parallels, or what you find here is a parallel. You have the first parallel appearing in verse 15, the second one appearing in verse 17, and they kind of complete each other. Again, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. And then in verse 17, therefore do not be unwise. So you see that these ideas, they confirm each other. The first one is confirmed by the second one. Walk circumspectly, the second one, do not be unwise. And then what you have at the end in verse 16 and at the end of verse 17, they also complete themselves. Redeeming the time because the days are evil. And then at the end of verse 17, but understand what the will of the Lord is. So here you have two ideas, they complete each other, and here you find a perfect biblical parallelism. The lesson paints a very vivid image about what to draw from these verses. I want to read it for you. This appears here in the third paragraph of the lesson that says, Paul also encourages intentional discipleship with a vivid image. In the phrase, making the best use of time, in verse 16, Paul uses the verb exorgazo. Drawn from the marketplace, it is an intensive form of the verb to buy and means to snap up the bargains on offer as we await Christ's return. Time here is the Greek word kairos, which describes a moment of opportunity. The time until the end is a promising period to be used to the full. It is also a challenging time because the days are evil, as said in verse 16, and because the course of this world is dominated by the prince of the power of the air. And you'll find that in Ephesians chapter 2. And so the description here of redeeming the time is the description of a very intentional use of the time. Because while the time is short, while we don't have all the time in the world, and we know that Jesus is coming soon, the end of the times are showing themselves in our daily life around us, the time is meant to be used intentionally, strategically, because it is a marketplace full of opportunities. It's dangerous because the enemy also knows that his time is short, but it should be used intentionally. And so the question here that I think we're left with is intentionally how? How do we redeem our time? How is this marketplace supposed to be taken advantage of in the terms of living wisely at this end time? I think that since the lesson draws the idea of discipleship, what it's going for is the use of time to reach other people. We are meant to be disciplers. After all, we are disciples of the great master, and we are called to reach the world. We're called to a great commission. And so I urge you to not only read these verses, not only study this lesson, but apply it into your life to redeem your time, to take advantage of your time intentionally, strategically. Look at people with the eyes of Christ and see in them eternal heirs of heaven and of salvation. So often in life, it's easy for us to look at people as just regular people walking to and fro. But friends, the truth is that there are no regular people. Every single human individual is in potential, right? Potentially is an heir of salvation, is a child of God. That's not potentially. They are children of God. And so we're called to see them with the eyes of Christ. And to do that, we need to live intentionally. Wherever you go, to the market, to school, to work, at home, even to church, there are people looking and searching for God. The reason why I emphasize church is because sometimes we expect that church is the one place where everyone is kind of on the same level. But no, friends, how many times in my own life have I seen people at church that kind of creep in? My reality of church is a very big church, and so it's easy for people sometimes to fall through the cracks. So I try my best to intentionally see people at Sabbath school, at the service, just walking around in the foyer. If they look a little bit lost, if they look like they don't know what's going on, that it's the first time there, I think that you can't miss those kinds of opportunities. Hone in on that opportunity to make friends, make acquaintances. After all, we're called to be friends of all. I will always live by the Pathfinder ideal of being a servant to God and a friend to all. That's what we're called to be, friends. Servants of God and friends to all. I'll repeat it again and again. So when at church, when at school, when at home, when at work, when on the street, in the grocery store, visiting some place on vacation, look at people with that intentionality that you are called to be a discipler. Redeem your time. Take advantage of it. And God will give you more and more of that kind of time to be even more intentional. May God bless you. Study your lesson, the right lesson. That's something that I have to learn, right? Study the right lesson, but study the lesson. Look up the Bible verses, fill out the questions, the answers, look up the texts. I'm sure that will be a blessing to you. Also, please remember to like, to share, to subscribe to our videos. We release one every day. Also, please remember to comment down below if you have any questions, any comments. It's fun to interact with you guys, and I hope to see you again here tomorrow for another Sabbath School Daily.